40K Fanatics Podcast. We're back again. Austin,
Yes.
you have thoughts about telepathy in D&D?
I do not want to get into that after the amount of discussion you and I have had about this ongoing issue in your D&D party.
It was a very strange thing. Maybe we'll do an RPG tavern sometime and just maybe we'll debate it and then let the commenters decide how they would rule it. Because as I'm DMing my group, I made a ruling and everybody lost their minds, which happens every now and then. Now, it did come up in subsequent discussion that I don't do that very often. Like, I am not a, well, the DM said so kind of guy. And I wasn't even this time. But it made for a somewhat tense interaction. But I think we're getting it all sorted out. But that's not what we're here to do today. We're here to talk about Warhammer 40,000 and how it's the best game by far. And you don't need any other game. You don't need any other game system. You don't need anything else to do. You don't need any other models. It is the one and only that, it's the alpha and the omega, the beginning and the end. It is the whole of your miniature wargaming experience.
Mm-hmm.
GW, I will get you the address of where to send the check. Just let me know. I'm very expensive. Our main topic today is actually going to be a listener-suggested topic, and it comes from the Discord. If you want to join the Discord, it's totally free to do so. And we're going to talk about other games. And how did we word it? How did we word this particular topic? Do you recall? Do you have a note about this? Or am I
think
looking
it
up
was
stuff
kind
live?
of when you go from mainline GW games, Warhammer 40K, Age of Sigmar, and when do you kind of transition into the specialist games, stuff like Horus Heresy in the Old World?
Yeah. The way it was posed in the Discord was, why should someone who plays 40K get into Old World or Horus Heresy or not? And then we'll expand that to Age of Sigmar, etc. And that'll be our main topic. But before we get to that, we're going to open up the Vox channel and read your comments as we do every week. And these are going to come, just like I said last week, from the How Warhammer Grew Up pod, the solo pod that I did, because we got a couple of really good, lengthier comments. This one comes from Jason Trump, frequent contributor. He says, as with all things, time and culture change things, and you did a great job of showing that change in gaming. As you pointed out, gaming has caused an evolution even within video gaming. You can now see that even more single player or story mode, I'm sure he means, is now almost completely removed from the video games. If included at all, it is mostly to train gamers for the ranked/match play of the game. I do wish that GW would make or encourage more formats like casual and competitive. Casual is not narrative. Kind of like Magic the Gathering has many formats that were built from the community and then adopted, looking at Horde mode as an example. It is then left to the social contract when the game was set up to make it less score the most VP to let's do fun things on the tabletop. I like what he's talking about with Magic, because there's all these different formats of Magic. And the community appears to readily accept them. And I wonder if that is not due to the somewhat greater maturity of Magic as a game and a community. Like, they've been around a long time, and people have been, the nature of it being a card game and kind of we play to win because, you can collect cards, but nobody's actually playing it for that purpose, It's not quite like a miniature war game. Though, an argument can, and I think has been made, that the miniature war game is ever closer to the card game. But
I would also say that coming from the card game, it has a lot of baggage from other card games, stuff like poker and all that, into where it's like you have a deck of cards, you can play different games. You can play poker, blackjack, 31, with just a deck of cards. So with Magic, you're more readily available to do different formats of the game because of that.
well,
It's a lot more versatile.
yeah, no, I like that. That's a neat connection. Just the sort of functionality of what I mean, maybe this is getting back to my idea about the evolution of things and what we see in our mind's eye when we think of a game and how that's evolved. What you see in your mind's eye when you think of a deck of cards is, oh, it's all sorts of different games. And perhaps that assists Magic in having all these different formats that are so readily accepted. Because you talk about a deck of cards as a versatile sort of thing. Well, I mean, a 40k army is as versatile as it can get. It's just a bunch of little dudes. They can be arranged in all different ways. They can attempt to do different things because at the end of the day, 40k is still it's a somewhat archaic type of engine that runs that game. It is not the same as a Marvel Crisis Protocol or a even well, I was going to say Kill Team, Malifaux, for instance. Those are very tight games that are meant to play the game they're meant to play, whereas 40k, Kill Team, Necromunda, those are more like simulator type engines that we could just play we could play King of the Hill. Well, where's the rules for King of the Hill? Well, I'm going to stand more guys in the middle than you. Okay, we've made a game mode, and the system doesn't in any way make that not work. So you would think that the various formats would um, populate, but they haven't yet. But I really liked that tie that Jason Trump made there. I want to read Paradukes as well. He's also a free contributor, and I believe he is somewhere over across the pond, as they say. He gives us three good paragraphs here. So this part of the Vox channel will be called reading, but I like Paradukes' thinking here. He says, I do agree that 40k shouldn't be as obsessively balanced as an esport, but I have to admit, I do quite like having a balanced game. The issue I have is when victory or loss is taken out of my hands entirely and comes down to circumstances outside my control. More specifically, I irrationally hate games that remove player agency. If my decisions don't matter, what am I even doing here? It may sound stupid, and I have been mocked for this, but I cannot stand playing Mario Party for that reason. Mario Party will like break up marriages, man. That's
Yeah.
my editorializing. He continues. Now, on the one hand, if I know for a fact that the other player is up for a silly game with narrative rules, I'm absolutely down for that. I love D&D, though of course that's entirely cooperative. The problem I have with narrative 40k is finding like-minded players. Everyone I know is predominantly interested in competitive games, so that's what ends up getting played. As such, I like knowing going in that the odds aren't stacked against me. Things balance themselves out well enough between friends, but it's nice to know that showing up to a match with the right number of points and a decent list should result in a fun game. To be clear, I don't want a game with no randomness. That would be dull as dishwater. Of course, it's still possible to get trounced by sheer bad luck. Those times you cannot make a 4 plus a 4 plus to save your life, or flub a 2 plus even with a reroll, but at least those occasions usually come off the back of poor decisions in the first place, and they're countered by the times you roll a stunning amount of 5 plus saves and keep that crucial unit alive until the end. It's more that I hate it when the game comes down to one roll that renders all other choices irrelevant. Again, it's about agency. If it's possible to end up in a situation where I might as well have not bothered to show up, it's not going to be a good time. He continues, I'm already rambling, but with regards to Kill Team, I've never played any of the earlier editions and only one game of third, but I very much want to play more. It's challenging to get people on board, but I really like the tactical focus. So those are good takes. I think I think that we spend a lot of time as a community talking about either it's well, everything's very polarized on the internet, right? And a as a thing on the internet, it is not the irony is not lost on me that we're just one of these places on the internet that spends a lot of time talking about polarizing things. But there's a whole lot of time spent talking about what's good, what isn't, what is playable, what's not playable, what wins, what doesn't. Then there's also a whole lot of bunch of people that are like, they change the rules too often. They need to stop doing that. I'll play 2 games a year, yada, 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 right? Both of those people are sort of existing in a unrealistic place. The person who plays 2 games a year, whether they make any balance updates or not, no offense, you're probably not playing right to begin with. Okay? The sort of little minutia that gets changed in these FAQs and stuff are not things that you're aware of, possibly. Certainly not things that you are leveraging and utilizing. So there's that. Over on the other side, the competitive people who, from one points change to another, say that whole armies are invalidated or whole units, they don't really exist in a realistic place either, because it's like, okay, so what now? You're going to take all the army you've got, sell it tomorrow, get a new army, somehow amass it so that you can play in 24 hours with the new hotness? That's not really realistic either. And I think that Paradukes makes some good observations about the real state of the game, which is 40K is in a pretty good spot. If you show up with 2,000 points and I show up with 2,000 points, we usually have a pretty interesting matchup.
Mhm.
And that's good at the end of the day. That's probably where it should be. I think that could GW balance the game to the nth degree if they just threw resources at it? Probably. Would you want that? Would even the competitive meta chasers want that, so that, okay, well, now it's solved, you can play. Certainly it would be impossible to be able to play every army. There would be some tiny amount of variance between the performance of all the armies in the game. So there'd be 4 at the top and they would just sort of sit there maybe. Okay,
Oh,
cool. Now we have a 4 army game if you're interested in just winning at all costs. Would that be fun? I think there's a
probably
little
not.
bit of both for the chasers and the casuals. Every so often something gets an update and it's like, oh, the army that I've been running for 6 months is now suddenly quite good. Great. Or even just the single list. The list I've been running for 6 months is all of a sudden, oh, cool, I added another unit to it and it's good now. That's kind of fun that just happens. And the rest of the time,
Mhm.
you know, I don't know what your stats look like. Listeners, get down in the comments and let us know, what's your win rate in tabletop battles. I'm sure everybody uses the same tabletop battles app, because I'm at like 58%, which is good. That means every time I go out and play, I got better than a coin flip of winning. And that's not because Chaos Space Marines are amazing, let me tell you. Because some of the newer codexes just absolutely melt everything I've got. But that is the Vox channel. Do you have any thoughts on that stuff that Paraduke said, Austin, before we move on to the Bits box?
I think it was covered pretty well.
I thought so too. He seems like
Yeah.
a thoughtful guy, old Paradukes. If you want to get at us, you can leave a comment anywhere. You can leave comments on Spotify as well. Spotify is a good place to listen, and we would sure like you to subscribe and rate us 5 stars over on Spotify as well as on the YouTube. We still lack about 30 subscribers on YouTube before we can move into some monetization options so that we can get better microphones and do more stuff and possibly even make more shows. So, if you're listening on YouTube and you are not subscribed, do it, or else. Let's open up that Bits box, Austin. The Bits box is a part of the show where we talk about what we have done in the miniature wargaming hobby this week. And I want to talk about our mother bleeping game of Old World that we played yesterday as we record this.
Yeah.
Oh,
How did that go?
it did not go well. It did not go well. We used the new match playbook, and I loved that. Okay. We played King of the Hill. Love some King of the Hill. We used a secondary mission in there where there was a tower to capture as well that did some magic stuff if you stood next to it and had control of it. That was cool. Um, but buddy, I am so tired of playing your goblins.
Why is that?
They have too many shenanigans. They have too many shenanigans. And look, I play 40K. I love 40K. I play Blood Bowl. I love Blood Bowl. Shenanigans are familiar to me. My problem is twofold. Old World is a game system that the rules have rules within the rules. So a given unit will have its weapons, its abilities, its things, right? But then also it'll have its unit type, which has some rules within it as well. Then you have magic items and things of that nature that affect various, what feel like little chunks of the game. And so all of that I have found um, quite difficult to learn with any sort of with any sort of fluency just by reading it. As we've played more games, I've gotten a much better handle on it to where I feel that there's like some um, predictions taking place as I maneuver my guys, as I attack your units, as I try to play the game. For instance, all right, I charged him. I brought a whole bunch of guys. I've killed a number of his dudes. That means he's only going to hit me back with 2 or 3 attacks. That's all he's got left on the front line or the second, right? They're almost gone. To which you say, oh no, these guys still make all their attacks until you kill the whole thing. I'm like, oh, fine.
That was a swarm unit. A swarm unit.
A swarm
It was
unit.
just the base.
Yes, yes. That one was fairly new to me in that interaction. I was like, okay, that's what the swarm unit does.
They have 6 wounds each.
Yes.
But one stand is a model.
Right, one stand as a model, and then it gets all the dudes. And then I'm like, okay, well, I I destroyed quite a number of something else, and I thought, all right, so now they've got to take a test to possibly run away. Yeah, no, these guys are immune to psychology. They don't ever take panic tests. I'm like, good. Okay. I guess we roll for combat resolution then, don't we? Yes. Another thing about Old World is for some reason this doesn't seem to translate to 40K when I'm playing it. In Old World, for those that don't know, you have to take leadership tests all the time. You want to be under the number, right? So low number, good. I can't roll less than 11 on leadership in Old World, it appears. My dudes are out here, leadership 8, 9. So you'd think, cool, 7s all day is going to get you. It wins at the casino for the casino, because 7 is the easiest thing to roll. How many times, Austin? How many times?
If we were playing a different game, you'd be doing pretty well.
That's what I'm saying. If I were rolling charges in 40K, I would have been killing you. Killing you. But that was unlucky. And then we got to the Fanatics, which are a little single model thing that gets sped out of units of core goblin infantry who are nearly wholly uninteractable in Old World. And they do crazy damage. And it just absolutely sucks. I think that's about all the shenanigans that caught me out. But man, it felt like a lot. Especially the problem was it felt worse because if if we'd had a mirror match of elves versus elves, I think I could have like got through the playing of the game and all of its myriad little interactions without much reference or required instruction. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So it was like I felt like I was really in control of the horse, and then only for it to just suddenly buck me off.
Yeah. So here's a thought I had.
Oh, also, Austin won, folks. He won by a good margin. Go ahead.
1900 to 1300.
Yeah, it was rough.
In a 1-to-1 fight, my goblins can't do much against the elves. If we're doing strictly like a Night Goblin versus a High Elf. High Elf is going to come on top, like most of the time. Uh, so army wide, I have all these little things to try to kind of tip it in my favor because uh, going doing the 1-to-1 isn't going to work out. So I have to have the nets, the fanatics, everything else to kind of have it balance out a little more. That's kind of how goblins play in the game.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's just nearly all those shenanigans feel bad because it's like, well, yeah, they just sort of don't participate in this part of the game, which I found frustrating. And not for nothing, I think I've won once because you forgot to send out all your fanatics.
Maybe.
Like they're a destructive force, unlike anything that I seem to have much access to. The way they work,
The
folks,
way
is they randomly move. They move quite far. But anything they touch, it doesn't have to be like a direct hit. It's just if they touch any unit, which is easy to do in Old World because it's all rank and flank, they're fairly large blocks of things. And then it's D6 hits, which is quite a few dice, potentially, in Old World. The hits are automatic.
strength
The strength
strength
is
5.
quite high. So they
That's winning
wound
most things on 2s.
wounds most regular infantry on twos. And then what's the AP?
-3.
-3. My magical dragon rider lance was -4. And he was 400 some odd points. So you just get stuck in a and then you can of course release them on my turn or your turn, and they move on my turn and your turn, so they can possibly do this whole whirling dervish twice as much as everything else can feasibly attack. And they just crush you. So they're the biggest feels bad because you can't shoot them; they're untargetable. You can't charge them; they're untargetable. If you charge into them, they do all their attacks, and then they warp to the other side of you and do all their and then they continue to do their thing. So it just sucks. But I mean I understand. You If it was just a straight fight, all your goblins would get killed. But
Yeah.
those things not participating in the game's entire interaction system is crazy. Because they don't go away after a turn either. They stay on the board until they either run off the board or run into an impassable terrain feature. And
Yeah, or roll a double on movement.
oh, okay. I've never seen that one happen. They usually bump into a hillside or something. But
Some
anyway,
games it happens immediately. Some games it happens never.
yeah, it was rough. I did play another game this week. Me and the wife played Violent Dark, which is the legally distinct Alien game. Both of us have been watching and very much enjoying Alien Earth, and so that made me want to get out Violent Dark. And I've got the hardly legally distinct Nostromo crew 3D printed from the local homie, and STLs bought from um, Blacksite Studios, who publish Violent Dark. So we had Ripley and Dim Boys fighting against the well, we used some fiends of Slanesh as the aliens because that's what I have. And they managed to do their little randomly generated mission and got out of there with uh, a not significant amount of bloodshed. So that was fun.
Mm-hmm.
That it's a cooperative game and kind of a horror game where the monsters work a little bit abstractly, similar to Don't Look Back that we talked about last year, which by the way, getting close to spooky season, gonna have some Don't Look Back to play.
Ooh.
But that's what I've done in the miniature hobby this week. How about you? Anything else?
Uh, all I've really done is put together those snotlings, not in them or anything, but just got them finally put together. I hate the snotlings because trying to build them, you have to kind of put them in a certain a pattern because they're so kind of they don't really rank up on a base very well. Because because they have the pegs in the bottom there to drill into the base into those holes. If you ever looked at the bottom of a base, sometimes there's a hole in the bottom. That's what that's for.
Yeah.
So having to drill in and then trying to figure out what the correct pattern is for placing them all on there. But I finally got them glued down there, so we'll get them in it eventually. I think I want to try to work on some dwarves and give you something else to fight against.
Yeah, I would much rather fight against the dwarves. I mean, look, full disclosure, folks, I completely crashed out at the game store. I was ready to just leave the army on the table and go home. That's how it felt. It was a beatdown.
Yeah.
So it was so obnoxious. I was over it. But
Uh,
I
Real
we
quick, something I forgot to
go ahead.
mention. Uh, so if you're upset with my goblins, I don't entirely like how much shooting you have.
I do have an amount of shooting.
Yeah. The bolt throwers get on my nerves.
My bolt thrower hits much better than your bolt thrower.
Yeah.
I do have some horses to build, so at some point I'll have some cavalry flying around. But man, it's going to be a lot of horses. There's a lot of horses to paint.
That it?
I think that's it. Let's close the bits box.
Boom.
Let us know in the comments your horror story of a game that just was the gift that keeps on giving. So, our main topic today, once again, brought to you by the listeners in our Discord. If you want to join the Discord, what's it cost, Austin?
It cost $0.00
Free 99. Yeah, so you can just join the Discord. Click the link to join down below in the YouTube description or the Spotify description or wherever. And get in there and show us your models and give us show suggestions and things of that nature. So, Austin, 40K
Yes.
is the greatest game that's ever been gamed. And we know
Sure.
that's so because the most people play it. And that's how you know what's the best, is whatever the most
Yeah.
people do is the best. That's the way it works. Lady Gaga is better than Michael Jackson.
Yes.
Austin has quit the podcast. No. Why should somebody try some other stuff? Like 40K
There's
is
so much stuff out
40K is the one that most people play though.
there. There's so much more to play.
I mean, look, we're going to try to make a whole topic out of this because I think it is an interesting conversation to have once we get into the nitty gritty. But the big takeaway here is, why would you? Because variety is good. Anything is going to get stale if you just do it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. All right? That was my Marshawn Lynch impersonation. So, but what if you think, okay, old world's certainly weird. Maybe that's too weird. Why would somebody want to play Horus Heresy if they already play 40K? It's just more 40K, isn't it?
Yeah, and even then, it's just Marines versus Marines for the most part. Why would you want to play that?
Why would you? Well,
Yeah.
it's because it's a totally different game. It's still Marines. It's still sci-fi. However, the kind of rules within rules that I was speaking about on Old World is what Horus Heresy does. Now, that is from another time, to be honest. The whole idea of a mounted unit, for instance, having rules within it that are meaningful, that are not on like a data sheet, that are just catch-all, universal, every mounted unit has got this thing that it does and you just need to know that. That's from a bygone era. But it makes for a different kind of experience in the way the game is played. It makes for the rules to be able to do some specific stuff with specific stuff. terrain, for instance. Uh, 10th edition 40k works quite elegantly with its keywords and things in this way, and that you have like an infantry, a monster, etc., and then infantry can walk through walls, but monsters can't, for instance.
Mhm.
Well, you get that expanded in every chunk in something like a Horus Heresy.
Yeah.
And there tends to be a higher level of customization, which Horus Heresy Third Edition, this is the gripe that the community's making, that they've taken a little bit of this away, but there's still a ton. It is not. It does not feel so much like a card game as 40k, and that may be something that you really like. It's also a little
Yeah.
more narratively focused. It's a lot more loose with the way that the scenarios actually work and your goals therein. So
Mhm.
it's not just it can't just be stand on the point. Everybody stand on the circle. There's some other things at play in a Horus Heresy match that is that you may find a bit more interesting. Now, it will be harder to get there, but as I always think, miniature wargamers are not afraid of some difficulty, some depth, some crunch. So that may be something that you're interested in trying.
Yeah, it's definitely. It's I say not an upgrade as in definitely a good thing, but it's certainly got more like stuff bolted onto it from your usual game of 40k people are used to, because this is an older edition. This is like 6th and 7th edition 40k that's still being played. Is where they mainly get most of the rules from. It's kind of a retro style game.
Yeah, and the other thing too is like 40k is for all the stick that it gets, it's real slick. You know, like it's a very polished kind of experience where it all just sort of feels the way you'd expect it to feel. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Like you can get the printed data cards that have all your keywords and most all your abilities are right even after FAQs and erratas and things. Every so often you got to print up a replacement. But for the most part, everything is right there at a glance. The loadouts are right there at a glance. It's all very quick. I mean, people talk about 40k takes hours to play. I mean, they all take hours to play if you don't know how to play. I mean, not to sound superior or anything, but you know, you and me can get a 40k game in less than 3, no problem. Uh, because we know where we're going, basically. But Horus Heresy is going to take you longer to get your head around in the same way that Old World, like basically everything we're saying about Horus Heresy, we could say about Old World. Now, why would you pick Old World to be your let's call it second game, right? If you got in this thing with 40k, why would you pick Old World to be your second game? And I can tell you from experience, because it is completely different from every aspect. It's completely different as a game that is played. It is completely different as a setting. It is completely different from the models to the painting to every single aspect. And that is neat.
Yeah, you're going from your skirmish blob formations to rank and flank squares and rectangles. Uh, Leadership's totally different. You're not having units just kind of like disappear or become battle shocked. Actually fleeing the battlefield. It's a whole lot uh, of a different game and different experience, which people might be enticed to play.
They flee in Horus Heresy.
Yeah,
I I
that's
thought
another thing.
I thought that was crazy. Like
I think it's cooler if they do that.
so here's my thing about it. I like the idea of the fleeing, and I love it in Old World. It's like, oh man, this has all gone wrong. All our buddies are dead. We're running away. Man, when it is a half mutated Chaos Space Marine, I like that there's no fleeing in 40k basically because I don't think that any of these dudes fighting in 40K, they don't run. The Tyranids don't run. The Space Marines don't run. It's all like, nah, the most you're going to get from us is we are hunkered down, unable to quote unquote hold this objective. But we're still shooting back. We're still fighting back until the very last guy is decapitated, right?
I guess.
But in Horus Heresy, they just sort of just run off like, oh no. And I think that's silly. Because like you guys are Space Marines. Come on now. Toughen up. But
I
but I,
mean, in 40K, it used to they would flee, and then they changed it to where they would just disappear.
oh well
Like,
that now
okay,
now look, if gun to my head it had to be flee or disappear, no. The whole concept of ninth edition and the way that guys would just evaporate made no sense.
here's my.
I
I
would
like
rather
the
them run
idea.
away.
Yeah, I like the idea of these guys are in an untenable position. They're going to temporarily fall back to a different position, regroup, and then go at it again. I like to see that happen, especially with like a squad based game like 40K. Have these squads of guys. Okay, we got to fall back from this position, regroup, try it again. I think that's neat.
I like the idea of sort of giving ground. You know, I don't like the turn, tail, and run, but I do. I would be interested in like a they've got to step back, like they can still keep shooting, yada yada yada, but you end up actually retreating and giving up some table space. I think that would be neat. Uh, but I'm sure we'll have an 11th edition wish list discussion soon because you got to have them every so often. It's the rules of content creation surrounding 40K. Um, why would you play Age of Sigmar?
Oh, I, I would say Age of Sigmar is out of this discussion because Age of Sigmar is a primary game.
I don't know. I kind of don't. I'll tell you what. I don't actually know where this comes from, and maybe you can educate me on it. But where does the quote specialist game nomenclature come from? Is that a thing that GW says?
Yeah.
Interesting. And what all do they consider a specialist game?
Mainline games are 40K, Age of Sigmar, maybe Middle Earth. Middle Earth is kind of like a gray area to where they're kind of a mainline slash specialist game. Specialist games are games like Horus Heresy, Blood Bowl, Old World, Legion Imperialis. Games that see if you see a bunch of Forge World releases for that game, then it's more than likely a specialist game.
Yeah, but practically, they're. I mean, it's not like there's any shortage ever of Blood Bowl teams. Like you can get them anytime you want. The rules are fairly balanced. They get regular enough updates that the thing isn't broken. Um,
What it means by specialists is these are these aren't like the games that they're going out and like heavily marketing. If someone walks into the shop and says, "Hey, I want to play tabletop. I want to buy a tabletop game. I'm I'm 16 years old. I'm getting into this game." They're more than likely not going to be introducing them to like Horus Heresy or the Old World. They're going to be handing them a box of Space Marines or Stormcast Eternals and saying, "Hey, here, paint these up, and we'll play a little tiny demo game."
oh, sure. I get that. Um,
That's sort of the distinction to think of. Is like games that you would like introduce people to get them into the Games Workshop system versus games that people who are already in the Games Workshop system may drift towards.
I see. Um, I make a quibble though. I have a quibble with that, which is I don't know what it looks like everywhere, but I have never, and I've been into game stores all across the country now. You know, popping in, see what they got, type stuff. And I have never seen Age of Sigmar get a ton of love. And get in the comments, let me know. Like, does your friendly local game store, your community, have a different sort of setup? Because it's always 4, 5 racks of 40K and then a little sliver of Sigmar stuff. And usually it usually looks like that they made some big initial buy, right? And this is what's left of that after however long. You know,
Yeah.
you never go into a place and see the new hotness of Age of Sigmar. Uh, and so, I mean, I know they want it to be a mainline game, and it is all
It is.
plastic and whatnot, but I don't know if it's I don't know if it's maining quite right.
Well, I mean,
It's
if you
definitely
look at
definitely a
if you,
distant second if it's second, and it probably
yeah,
is.
it's second. But if you look at what they're pushing in things like marketing and stuff, it's you've got 40K and you got Age of Sigmar.
That's true.
Those are the two that they put right up in front and center. If you look at the what is it, the Warhammer Plus models, you have 40K and you have Age of Sigmar.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. It seems like they'd throw a Horus Heresy on there every so often, and maybe they will with
Nope,
the
because
third
it's not
edition.
a mainline game.
I hear you, but I mean, what if the market next year says, "Hey, actually, it is now." Like, could you imagine a world where new Horus Heresy starts to outsell Age of Sigmar? Because I can.
Possibility.
But let's run the thought experiment. Like, what if you play 40K? Why would you want to play Age of Sigmar? And again, I think the answer is it's it is different enough. If you are someone who only plays 40K, you are going to be drinking from the fire hose trying to learn Age of Sigmar. And it's good. It's real good. And the models are outrageous. So much Golden Demon uh, bait comes out of the Age of Sigmar range. So if you're into painting, if you're into building, if you're into just what I believe to be the head and shoulder superiority of GW plastic model development, it's over there at Age of Sigmar.
Yeah.
And then there's Blood Bowl. If you play 40K, why would you want to play Blood Bowl?
Do you think fantasy football neat?
Fantasy football is neat, and it's just about that time. Have you joined a fantasy league?
No, I've never played fantasy football.
Well, there is no playing to it. You just pick names. Man,
Wouldn't know who to pick.
that'll probably get people mad in the comments. There's a lot to it. You got to do all kinds of study. I listen to 27 podcasts about it so I can win my fantasy league, and I've never won before. Somebody auto picked and won last year. Anyway, um, yeah, things like Necromunda, things like Blood Bowl, we start to get to a place, per the kind of prompt of this main topic. By the time you get down to Blood Bowl, Necromunda, am I missing anything? Oh gosh, what's the Age of Sigmar board game type thing?
Uh, there is Underworlds and there
Underworlds.
is
It's what I was
Warcry.
thinking. Yeah, Underworlds is what I was thinking of. Warcry is the Age of Sigmar kill team equivalent. Um, but by the time you get to Underworlds, by the time you get to Blood Bowl, by the time you get to Necromunda, you're really at some totally different stuff. Like, one, they're not even war games at that point. They're like skirmish games. They're, in the case of Blood Bowl, it's like a sport. I mean, they're still miniatures games, but they're completely a different thing than 40K, than even Old World, than Horus Heresy. And the reason why you'd want to get into that is just to be into the miniature hobby in, at its fringes, I would say. Because there are a lot of good miniatures games. For instance, that game Violent Dark that I told you about in the Bits box is like Alien, not Aliens, like Alien 1, where it's a monster movie. And that's a miniatures game, and it's cooperative.
Mhm.
And you guys are kind of playing against sort of the game AI, if you will. Of course, there's no app or anything, it's just rules in a book. And so you and all your buddies get together and drink beers and try to solve this puzzle of this monster trying to chop you guys up. And you can sort of go the D&D terrain route with it and make and build like a whole diorama to play it. And that's the way it's meant to go. And that's just that's part model train set, part miniatures game. And, you know, the gateway drug to all this plastic crack, for most people, tends to be Warhammer 40,000. And I think there was parenthetical, why should you not play this stuff? Money and space, money, space, and time. Those would be the reasons not to. But we're the 40K Fanatics podcast. We got all the money and space and time. Isn't that right, Austin?
Absolutely. I'm not selling stuff as we speak.
Yeah, certainly. You would never be selling anything. Why would you? You have to keep it all, especially all the 40K. And get more. Anyway, GW, put the check in the mail, and all of you, get in the comments to tell us what you think. What are some of your favorite games that you like to play, and why do you like them? Because I know how this works too. You get in modes, or at least I do, where I'm in a 40K mode. I'm going to play 40K for 6 months, and then I'll get in a different mode, and I'll play Judge Dredd for however long. Tell us what you do, and until next time, don't ever forget to
Stay fanatical.